Happy NFL Draft Day. We play some fun little games to get you ready for the first round, that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP Thursday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky_WTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm the deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Evan is over on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10TampaBay.com. And Locked On Bucs is here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. For that, want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show, become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, plus one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side. Evan knows that all too well, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Bold predictions, rapid fire hot takes coming up for you in a little bit. But let's start with a couple of things about the Bucs heading into the first round of the NFL draft tonight. So Evan, we are finally here. We're finally here. Thank God we're finally here. The NFL draft kicks off tonight for those of you listening or watching on Thursday. And there's been a lot of prospects that we have talked about on this show. But more than that, there's been a lot of prospects linked to the Bucs from all sorts of other outlets. So I'm going to start with this. Who is the top player that you have seen linked to the Bucs throughout this draft process? Maybe it was in a mock draft, maybe it was an article, maybe it was a feature, whatever it was. But who is the top player that you've seen linked to them that they shouldn't draft, whether that's for fit or you don't think the player is going to pan out in the NFL, whatever the case is?
I'm seeing a lot of him, and I'm just not in love with it, is Chop Robinson. Obviously, the position is of need. I don't love the height, weight, hand. He's smaller. Edge is the toughest position to nail down, and I don't think the Bucs should force it. I think they can probably find a more they can find a safer option who can be a more impact player for them in this upcoming season. Then I think the high risk, high reward that Chop Robinson would be for him to work out. So, for Chop to be taken, you got to imagine that Verse is gone, Liatu Latu's gone. I'm forgetting one other.
Dallas Turner?
Yeah, he's for sure gone. So you're kind of on like the fourth, fifth option. Let me just make sure I'm not forgetting. I feel like I'm forgetting one more.
Well, there's also Darius Robinson has been floated out as.
Yeah, he's kind of in that range. I thought, you know what? I think that's probably right. I think we've named the top three. So I just don't know. Like at that point, I rather, if Johnny Newton's sitting there, what we talked about last episode, or interior O-line, even though you can probably find some late in the draft. I don't know. I don't know about that one. There's a part of me. It just I see a lot of risk with it. So
for sure.
If maybe that's a scared way of playing, but for me, if I had to pick, I'm just seeing that name a lot. So when gathering up these mock drafts, I think that's the one that scares me the most, where I can see it blow up in their face.
Yeah, well, and Adam Schefter tweeted out that graphic on Wednesday morning. I talked about it on yesterday's show, where edge rusher From 2000 to 2019, there were 104 edge rushers taken, only 44% of them hit, versus center, 92% of them taken in the first round hit, and then guard, 50% of them taken in the first round hit. So you're right. I mean, it's definitely safer to go interior offensive line if those options are sitting there. But on the flip side, though, who is a player that no one has been talking about that you think would be a great fit in Tampa Bay?
As I've mentioned this before, and I'm kind of a sucker for the irony of it, but TJ Tampa out of St. Pete. So I just think that the Bucs need another secondary piece. While TJ Tampa might not be a day one starter, he would compete for that slot corner position. He would also provide necessary depth. I think that's the key word that kind of Jason Light talked about. They have a lot of needs. And when you focus on the teams that succeeded in 2021, those teams were deep at all positions. So I would not be surprised for the Buccaneers to utilize a high draft pick, a day one, early day two pick on a secondary piece that not necessarily has a spot playing significant minutes week one, but could be someone that develops in this program, a la Isaiah McCollum, who we're hoping to see big things out of in year 3. But in year 2, he wasn't really a starter and played starter minutes because everybody was injured around him. And then also in year 1 was put into some spot duty. Wasn't great, but, that's sort of – I don't think he would be as raw as Zion was coming in out of Sam Houston State.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you're talking about the difference of a second-round pick versus a day 3 pick at that same position. And I've talked a lot on this show about how difficult the cornerback position is under Todd Bowles to kind of learn the scheme and learn the responsibilities. But, that was something that we talked to Zion McCollum's college coach about. And he said, even there, it took him about a year to really get his feet under him and understand. But once it clicked. And he was off to the races. So I like the fit of TJ Tampa. There was another one that I talked about on yesterday's show that I hadn't talked about a lot, which was Nate Wiggins, who I think might even be
his name. I didn't mention him because his name has popped up some.
It has, absolutely. But, it was a guy that I started to dive into, and I'm like, this guy's a better fit than Kool-Aid McKinstry. And we hear McKinstry a lot. Yeah. And I've talked about McKinstry a lot on this show. And I was like, we need to give Nate Wiggins some shine because that could be a really, really solid fit for the Bucs. But Evan, we are going to go through some rapid fire hot takes. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, you lift your head up, and you say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There is so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, or you can charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And if you're more confident than me, you can bet on the Lightning to come back from down 2-0 against the Florida Panthers now that Sam Bennett is out with a upper body injury. We all know he broke his hand, but what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Every dayers, make sure you are coming back tomorrow. I will be going live on YouTube after the Bucs make their pick in the first round. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube with notifications turned on so you know exactly when I'm going live. My goal is 15 to 20 minutes after the pick is made, but we're going to get going as fast as possible. In the meantime, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Evan, let's go through some rapid fire hot takes here about the draft in general, not necessarily about the Bucs, but just about some of the players that we are going to hear mentioned on Thursday night, maybe into Friday, and players that we have heard about, how can I put this, relentlessly over the course of about the last 3 months. So let's start with, who do you think will be the biggest draft bust?
Biggest draft bust. It's a good question. I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors.
Okay, interesting. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I was kind of torn. Was thinking maybe to go Caleb. I don't know. I mean, it's really tough.
The answer is Caleb.
He was on my list. I think there's a lot of steam on Malik. A lot of, some people have him ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. By bust, I don't think Malik Neighbors is going to be bad. I don't think he's going to be this all-world pro. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a monster. Now, if he's put on the New England Patriots or something, it's going to be pretty tough for him, just like Garrett Wilson, right? Garrett Wilson's a stud on a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
Jets, right? He's unequivocally really good. His stats don't reflect it because he had Zach Wilson throwing him the ball back-to-back years. So there's that. I don't know if we're going to see it from Malik Neighbors. He might be trend more to a little more splash plays than a consistent threat. So that will be my leaning, that the expectations for Neighbors won't meet the reality. Neighbors will still be very good, but how good, I don't know if I'm as bullish as everybody else.
That's fair. And honestly, and you're going to yell at me for it, it's kind of how I lean with Marvin Harrison. I think he's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll be good. I don't think he's going to be like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, franchise changing wide receiver. But again, I think you nailed it, and it depends on where he goes. And I think if he ends up in a place like the Chargers, where he's got Justin Herbert and he has a quarterback that can get him the ball, he might be able to become that. If he lands on the Patriots, like you said, that's just, nobody wants to be there. That's just bad news for everyone. But we will see. I'm not going to call him a bust. I just don't think he's going to be Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase level.
Yeah, bust is a very strong word,
It absolutely is.
It's like, usually the easiest answer is just kind of go with an edge guy and say, yeah, it's not going to work out because the probabilities are in your favor that they're going to blow up. But
honestly, I mean, and I go back to that chart that I referenced on Wednesday's show. The position that most often misses drafted in the first round is wide receiver. Only 27% hit rate. So
my other one's kind of Brock Bowers. Just because tight ends also are, I've heard about some generational tight ends before, and it hasn't worked out the way it's supposed to. So that's also a position that takes a tough transition going from college to the NFL. So,
all right. Well, whose name are we going to hear on Thursday night, but we shouldn't? In other words, who's going to be taken way higher than they should?
Way higher than they should. It's a good question. Another one. Let me. Michael Penix Jr.
Okay, I can get behind that.
I like him. I don't. Again, for me, my thing with Penix is mostly he's older and he's been through some significant medical issues. To me, he's one injury away. And I know that everyone technically in the NFL is one injury away, but like if he tears his ACL one more time, I do not know how he comes back, giving it like a fourth time here. It just you're putting your eggs in a riskier basket, in my opinion. So I'll go with him. And if you don't like that, I put Bo Nix in that category too. I think that to me the top QBs are kind of the top QBs, and for Penix and Bo, even though I know Bruce Arians loves Michael Penix Jr. Because the accuracy is very hard to teach. My questions about Bo Nix are: did he benefit by just being the oldest guy in college football, or were the year-to-year progressions signal something else?
Yeah, my problem with Penix, and I've said it on the show before, it's up here. Worst quarterback in college football against pressure. It's not going to get any easier at the NFL. So I don't think he's going to pan out very well. On the flip side, who is a player that's going to be available in the second round that should have been taken on Thursday night?
It's probably going to be one of the wide receivers. Which one? Not 100% sure. Maybe I'll say, like maybe a Keon Coleman. Maybe okay. Keon Coleman slips through into the second round. I love Keon Coleman. His playing speed is faster than what his
measurable speed.
Yeah, right. Yep. Like, I mean, when he went through the gauntlet, he flew right through it. Now, when you put him in a 40-yard dash, it wasn't the sexiest time. But I think that, I mean, watching the tape and also how smooth he is running his. I like Keon Coleman a lot. And there are maybe some more athletic options in this draft at wide receiver, but I don't fall into those traps as much. I love Keon Coleman, but he might fall into the early second round.
All right, and then finally, call your shot. These two players are going to be offensive and defensive rookies of the year, and I in no way will hold this against you in 10 months when these awards are officially announced.
Well, offensive player of the year, I have to go with the quarterback. It just makes too much sense. I have to also understand who goes on what team. It's really, I'll say that, you know what? I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to be the offensive player of the year. If he's landing in Chicago, I think they got some things set up for him. And then defensive player of the year, I'm going to go I'll go Dallas Turner. I think he's a freak. Right. So,
all right, we are going to bring you our bold predictions for the NFL draft. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wrapping things up here on a Thursday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and it is prediction time. Let's go through a couple of these really quick. Evan, I'm going to give you the first crack at it, then I'm going to answer as well. But let's start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will make a pick at 26 on Thursday night. Yes or no?
Really, no.
I will also lean no, which leads to the follow-up question. Are they trading up or down?
I think it depends. I think if Laiatu Latu is falling, I think they might trade up, right? Someone like that. But if a handful of their guys, I think they're more likely to trade down than trade up, but I'm not here to say that they would never trade up. I think there are scenarios where they would make that move.
I'm going to be less wishy-washy. I'm going to say they're trading up. The Buccaneers will come away with more defensive players than offensive players in this draft.
False.
I will also say no to that one. The Bucs will have both a new wide receiver and a new running back before Saturday.
False.
False. All right. Out of curiosity, which one will not be taken in the first 3 rounds?
Running back.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to say that they will. That both a wide receiver and a running back will be selected within the first 2 days. And then finally, your bold prediction, Mr. Evan Klosky. Who are the Buccaneers taking in the first round of the NFL draft?
Bold prediction is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade out of the first round and don't make a first round prediction. So that will be my bold prediction.
Oh, wow.
But if we're going under the scenario, again, it's a numbers game. I just think that the people they're looking to get might get nabbed up before they actually can get there. I would love to say that they trade up for Laiatu Latu. I think he's so perfect for this team. But if the board breaks the way that it breaks, and let's say they have a body to bring in, they'll grab someone in the trenches. offensive or defensive.
Now, out of sheer morbid curiosity, before I drop my bold prediction, who do you see them trading out of the first round with? Because I saw, the reason I ask is I saw a mock draft that dropped on Wednesday where they traded out of the first round, and I'm curious if you are looking at the same team.
Well, I'll tell you this in 2 seconds. Let me just get the draft order up before I do this. I would say if they were to trade out of the first round, it would be with either a team like, you know what? I won't be wishy-washy. The Chargers.
Okay. All right. That is not the same team. I saw it was Lance Zierlein's mock draft where he has the Bucs trading out of the first round with the Washington Commanders so that they could come up and get an offensive tackle.
Well, I was going to say, to me, I ended up landing on the Chargers because I think Harbaugh wants to attack the O-line too. And I think with how deep this draft is, I can see Harbaugh being like, let's go up, get someone on the interior, and make that trade with the Buccaneers. But, I don't foresee the Bucs trading down more than 37, right? Like at some point you can't really give up the equity that I think is still going to exist at the top of the second round. Remember when they got Logan Hall, they traded down to get the first pick on day 2. So,
right.
I don't, and I also don't think they're going to help out the Panthers who have 33. So I don't foresee that happening unless the Panthers want to, pay a tax essentially and pay an exorbitant fee for what they're going to have to get for that pick. But Patriots, Cardinals, Commanders, Chargers, those are kind of the teams that I'm looking at. And the Titans is the Titans would have to blow me away with an offer. And I only bring them in there who have 38 because they also have a new coaching staff. They could want to add another premier pick. So, I think that, again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in a position where they don't necessarily need a home run first-round pick. I think they're completely okay with gathering up some depth picks and really just building some formidable depth behind their starters because they're pretty set. Not like perfectly set like in 2021, but they're not as desperate. And again, I hold an asterisk there because if they can trade up for a star edge guy that they love, I think they should absolutely do that. But it's going to take like a Leatu Latu falling down to 18 before I think a guy like Jason Light gets a little antsy and says, hey, let's strike, let's trade that other third rounder we got. Let's get him.
All right. Well, my bold prediction is they're going to do exactly that. My bold prediction for the Buccaneers selection is that they do trade up, and it is for Leatu Latu out of UCLA, the edge rusher. But I will add an additional bold prediction. I don't think they trade down. And I realize that's kind of been Jason Light's MO. He likes to trade back. He likes to collect extra day 2 picks because that's where he's made his money. That's where he's made hay is in the second and the third rounds. But I think kind of like you mentioned, they put themselves in a position where really they can accumulate a lot of depth. They do still need a couple of starters, right? They still need help on the edge. They still need a starter either at guard or center because then you have Robert Hainsey playing either one. So I think they're in a position now where they get to take best player available at 26 if they don't get blown away by an offer, to move back a little bit. So I think if they sit at 26, even if Jared Verse and Leatu Latu are gone, they can go with Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins. They might have an option to get Graham Barton or Jackson Powers Johnson to solidify the offensive line. They could have a Donnie Mitchell sitting there who I really, really love for this football team. And I know it's kind of crazy to say wide receiver in round 1, but when you're also looking ahead a year, 2 years, 3 years, you may not have Chris Godwin. And now you have a bona fide wide receiver 3 that becomes your bona fide wide receiver 2 next year. And you have that whole domino effect. So I don't think they trade down. I think if they trade, it's up. And if it's a trade up, it's for Latu.
And let me just be the devil's advocate here of what do they need? Wide receiver, interior offensive line, tight end, all position. I would even say safety depth, right?
Yep.
All positions corner. Yeah. I think those positions, there are strong day 2 players.
Oh yeah,
in those spots. So to get 5 picks, because I mean you're taking out a day 1 pick, you don't have any there. So we're shifting over 1. You probably acquire another by doing your deal. 5 day 2 picks. That seems yummy to me. It does. Like you attack wide receiver, interior offensive line, tight end, maybe even a running back, like you mentioned, and a secondary piece. I mean, you got everything you need. You might not have the home run selection like a Latu, but you really built this team with some strong depth. And if 2024 doesn't work out, you might be striking in 2025 to say we're ready to go. So
yeah,
and that's thinking big picture again. Maybe maybe last year was way ahead of time, and this might be the year before the year. So that's just where my head is at.
Yep, I love it. And I also love the fact that the next time you and I get together on this show, we are talking about what did happen, not what might happen.
That's right.
For next week.
And the Lightning coming back in their series and winning in 7, right? Am I right?
6. Coming back and winning in 6.
Oh, man.
All right. Evan, what do you have going on over on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com?
Man, we're locked in on the Bucs draft right now, obviously, and also the Tampa Bay Lightning in the playoffs. Hopefully by the time that we talk, hopefully they're still in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I will say you guys are not going to – you might get me next week early, but then I'm getting married at the end of next weekend. So we'll have that. We'll have the mini moon. And so there might be a couple of weeks where I'm gone. But between that, Lightning playoffs, Bucs draft, the Rays trying to get their season back together, we're cooking as usual here.
Love that. Locked On Bucs live stream from Evan's wedding. Keep an eye out for it. All right. Make sure you are checking
Absolutely not.
Make sure you're checking out everything going on over at BucsNation.com and on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube and turn on those notifications so you know when I go live Thursday night after the Bucs selection. If there is a selection, Evan thinks maybe not so much, but I'll go live either way. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.